Hey y'all, I'm going to do a quick review of interval notation. So when I have a bracket in interval notation, it means that the graph had a closed dot or that my inequality had an equal sign of some sort. So in class I use like a straight line equal sign, and like that creates that straight line bracket. Okay. A parenthesis means an open dot in your graph, or it means that there was no equal sign of any sort. So it was just a less than, it was just a greater than, it might have even been a not equal. Okay. The difference between negative infinity and positive infinity is that negative infinity is all the way over here to your far left. It's in the negative portion. And that positive infinity is all the way over here to your far right. It's in that positive portion. Okay. We're not going to worry about union in this class. So right here, we're going to graph each inequality. So your cheater approach to this is you just go ahead and put the number that you see there in the very middle. We're going to use an open dot on this because it's an inequality and it has no equal sign. And then it's going to point this direction. Okay, in class I go towards my desk or towards the door. At home you can do left or right, but I know some of us struggle with that. So this points all the way to the end towards negative infinity. We read from left to right. So when I look at this graph, the first thing you should see is that negative infinity. So I'm going to write my negative infinity first. Then when my graph stops, I'm at 5. So I'm going to put my 5 second. Parentheses always go with infinities because if you know what infinity equals, you deserve a Nobel Prize. And so if you know that, like, tell me. I'd love to steal your idea. I'd love to go get the money. But I highly doubt that that's going to happen in our lifetime. So we go ahead and we put parentheses on 5 as well because it is an open dot. Okay. So number 2 is pretty similar. We're going to put that dot in the middle of 5. That dot is going to be a closed dot this time because the difference between the last one and this one is this little equal sign. Okay. It still points in the leftward direction, which still points all the way towards negative infinity. So as I read from left to right, I see the negative infinity first, so I write that first. Then I stop all the way at 5. I have to put a comma in between. Infinities always get parentheses because we don't know what they equal. And 5 is going to get a bracket this time. The reason it gets a bracket is because it has a straight line equal sign, so it gets a straight line bracket, or because it has that closed dot. Okay, your choice on how you remember that. I want you to understand that just because the 5 has a bracket doesn't mean that the infinity gets a bracket. Okay, so the infinity should always have a parenthesis no matter what your number gets. So I'm going to cheat my way. I'm going to put just a 5 there. And I'm going to draw a circle around the 5. That's my dot. I keep it open. The reason why I keep it open is because there's no equal sign. It points all the way towards positive infinity. And so as I read from left to right, I see the 5 first. So I'm going to write the 5 first this time. And then I see the infinity. Okay? Infinity always gets a parenthesis. The reason why it always gets a parenthesis is because it is not ever equal to an actual number. Okay? So it goes on and on forever. We give it a parenthesis. We don't know what it actually equals. 5. 5 is also going to get a parenthesis here. It does not get a bracket. Can you tell me why? So my 5 gets a parenthesis because there is no equals of graphs in our books. We see this one where the x is in the middle or in between. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put 0 here, -1, 1, 2, 3. Okay. I'm going to put a circle on -1. That circle gets to be a colored in circle. I also put a circle on 3. That circle gets to be a colored in circle because of the equal signs. And then I color in between. That's my final graph for here because the x is in between. Some teachers have you break this up into 2 different inequalities. And we talk about how that x has to go first in order to use that rule about the arrows. So some teachers have you do this. And so if they point towards each other, you're going to color the in-between part. Okay. I also have an OR graph. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to start at 0 again. 1, 2, 3, 4. If x is less than 2, then I'm going to put my dot on 2. I make it an open dot this time because there is no equal sign. It points all the way towards -infinity. This one is an open dot. It points all the way towards +infinity. These make like robo-ORs, okay? So it's an OR graph. It makes a graph that looks like robo-ORs, or some of my kids like to know that they go in the opposite direction. And they match the O of opposite with the O of the OR, okay? I'm going to do the interval notation for those 2. So this one goes from -infinity, as I read from left to right, to +2. The -infinity always gets a parenthesis. The +2 gets a parenthesis because it's not equal. The 4 gets a parenthesis because it's not equal, and the infinity gets a parenthesis because it's infinity. It always gets a parenthesis. Okay. Right here, I have from -1 to +3. So I hit -1 first, I hit the 3 second, and I put brackets around each of these because both of them are colored in. Okay. Over here where they're not colored in, they will both get parentheses. And right here where one has an equal sign and one does not, the one with the equal sign gets a bracket, whereas the other one gets a parenthesis. That's your really fast recap.